You know what scares me more than an actual grid collapse? The mistakes people make in the first few hours when the power goes out. Not the collapse itself, not the darkness, not even the silence dot. It's the simple, tiny decision stuff. You wouldn't even think twice about that, end up spiraling into disasters that take people down long before the real danger even arrives. And the craziest part? Most of these mistakes happen because people assume a blackout is just an inconvenience. They treat it like a temporary glitch instead of the opening move in a survival scenario where physics, biology, and human psychology all start stacking the odds against you. So listen carefully, because these 7 mistakes don't wait for society to unravel. They don't wait for looters or riots or infrastructure collapse. They kick in immediately, and if you don't know what to avoid, you're already playing from behind. The first mistake is lighting up your house like a beacon the second the power goes out. You know how it goes. People scramble for candles, lanterns, crank up the battery lights. They try to recreate normality because their brain wants to pretend nothing's wrong. But here's the truth nobody tells you. In a prolonged blackout, the brightness you produce becomes intelligence for anyone outside. Light is information dot. It tells the world exactly where someone has power, supplies, or gear worth taking. Even a candle behind a curtain glows like a lighthouse when the entire neighborhood is pitch black. The human eye adapts to darkness in about 20 minutes, and after that, the tiniest light source stands out like fire on gasoline. If the outage lasts, the people who stay quieter, darker, harder to locate, they're the ones who get through the early chaos. That's why smart survivalists use directional light or cover it with makeshift diffusers like red cloth or aluminum foil tunnels. You want glow without glare, visibility without broadcasting your position. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. The second mistake is something almost everyone does: opening the fridge or freezer constantly just to check on things. You wouldn't believe how fast cold air dumps out every time you open the door. A freezer that could have lasted 48 hours drops to 18. A fridge that could have held temperature for a full day becomes unsafe in half that time. And food poisoning is one of the fastest ways people get wrecked in a blackout, because it hits when your body is already stressed, dehydrated, and operating without access to normal medicine. When the grid fails, your fridge becomes a passive thermal battery. You get one chance to trap that cold. So the rule is simple. Make a written inventory before you open anything. Know exactly what you're grabbing, grab it once, and then tape the door shut. Literally tape it. You'd be shocked how many survival instructors do this, because it stops people from peeking. Cold becomes a resource, and wasting it is one of the fastest ways a blackout starts killing people long before starvation does. The third mistake is running a generator inside a garage, under an awning, or anywhere near the home. And if you think nobody would be that foolish, you'd be wrong. It happens every major disaster. Families trying to block the noise, hide the generator from thieves, or keep it out of the rain. Carbon monoxide doesn't care about your intentions. It's invisible, odorless, and heavier than air. It sinks, pools, drifts through gaps in doors, and knocks people unconscious before they realize anything is wrong. The physics of it is horrifying. Once CO saturates the hemoglobin in your blood, your body literally starves for oxygen, even though you're still breathing. And during a blackout, there are no functioning CO detectors, no humming noises from appliances, no airflow from HVAC systems. The environment becomes a perfect trap. The generator goes far away from the living area, full stop. If you have to chain it to a tree to avoid theft, do it. If you're worried about sound, build a baffled barrier, never an enclosure. Sound travels, but poison kills. This section is based on practical field survival experience rather than formal academic sources. The fourth mistake is waiting too long to secure water. People always assume water will continue flowing. For a short outage, sure. But major blackouts ripple backward through infrastructure. Lift stations stop running. Pumping stations fail. Pressure drops. Even if pipes don't immediately run dry, contamination starts creeping in once negative pressure sucks in dirt or bacteria through cracks. And here's the brutal truth. Once the taps go dry, every unprepared person in a 5-mile radius is thinking the same thing: supermarket, bottled water now. But the shelves empty in minutes. So when the power goes out, the smartest people fill every bathtub, pot, bottle, jug, and container immediately. Not later, not after checking social media. Immediately, because if the outage ends in an hour, fine, you wasted nothing. But if it doesn't, you just bought yourself days of hydration security while everyone else is already behind the curve. Humans degrade fast without water. Your organs don't care that this is just a blackout. Biology works on its own timeline. The fifth mistake is trusting batteries more than muscle. Flashlights die. Headlamps dim. Power banks drain faster in cold weather and fail completely at sub-freezing temperatures. People think they have plenty because all their devices say 70%. But lithium-ion's discharge curve is deceptive. When the temperature drops and internal resistance rises, that number lies to you. Mechanical solutions, hand-crank radios, wind-up flashlights, manual tools don't lie. And the people who build their entire emergency lighting plan around battery-powered gear end up rationing light, fumbling in the dark, or burning through precious batteries because of constant just-in-case usage. The trick is simple. Battery tools are for tasks. Non-battery tools are for navigation. Use light the way submariners do, only when needed, as little as possible, and always with a fallback that doesn't rely on stored electricity. The sixth mistake comes from human psychology, assuming the danger will come from outside. In reality, the biggest threats in the early hours come from inside your own home. Candles knocked over by pets. Stairs navigated in near darkness. Cuts, burns, slips, all the little household accidents that turn into major medical problems when hospitals are overrun or backup power fails. Most disaster injuries don't come from violence or chaos. They come from mundane, stupid, preventable incidents that would normally be nothing but, in a blackout, suddenly become life-altering. So the first thing smart survivalists do is stabilize their environment. They clear walking paths. They isolate fire sources. They create safe lighting around staircases. They pre-stage first aid supplies in one accessible spot. Your home becomes a hazard zone, not because it changes, but because your ability to respond to accidents collapses. Preventing injuries becomes survival. And the seventh mistake is the deadliest: waiting for someone else to confirm the severity of the blackout. People stall because they want certainty. They want the news, the internet, an alert, something official. But real blackout, serious ones, often knock out the very channels that would tell you what's happening. And the longer you wait to shift into action mode, the more resources you lose. The ones who get through major outages are the ones who treat every loss of power as potentially serious until proven otherwise. They check the breakers. They check the neighborhood. They power down electronics to protect them from surges. They fill water duct. They secure light. They establish a comms plan. And if it turns out to be nothing, great, they're ready for next time. But if it isn't, they just bought themselves irreplaceable minutes that most people waste scrolling through a dead smartphone, waiting for it to magically reconnect. So that's the truth about blackouts. It's rarely the collapse that gets you first. It's the innocent mistakes, the small decisions, the false assumptions that stack up into real consequences. And the people who survive aren't the ones with bunkers or mountains of gear. They're the ones who understand how fast normal life becomes fragile when the lights go out.